super excited to be here today with Gilbert Najera, aka DJ Titan.
Hi.
Tell them a little bit about what you're going to talk about in our interview coming up here.
We're going to talk about me being a DJ, why I want to be a DJ, who inspired me when it came to why I wanted to be into music at all, my DJ school a little bit, and some music stuff too.
Welcome to the Dallas Culture Club podcast. For those who seek to create meaningful connections with other purpose-driven locals in a more authentic relationship with yourself. I'm your host, Carrie Horn, founder of Passion Dallas Media. And through these talks with my incredible guests and my own life experiences, I'm going to show you that the secret to building a more connected and joyful life is through your conversations and cultural experiences. Come on, let's dive in. Hey, Dallas. We're so excited to be back with you today for episode 6, season 1 of the Dallas Culture Club podcast. On the podcast, you have the opportunity to hear the stories of local creative leaders who are shaping the culture of our city. And today we have another very special guest. Gilbert Najera, aka DJ Titan, is dedicated to professionalism and growth. Gilbert is adding energy and fun into our city through his mixes and beats, and he has co-founded the DJ School Dallas, teaching aspiring artists his craft. Without further ado, let's listen in to our super cool conversation. Here is Gilbert Najera. I am so excited that I am here with you, Gilbert Nahera, aka DJ Titan.
I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. We had the fortune to be able to have like a nice little discussion off camera the other day. So I do feel like I've gotten the opportunity to know you a little bit more than just you walking in my studio. But I'm glad to be able to like delve into it because I'm fascinated by the fact that you're so professional about the way that you have styled your business. And I think there's this certain like essence to being a DJ that maybe is this perception of it's this wild fun, which it is, right?
Can be. Wild
and fun. But you have this very professional concept in the way that you look at it. And of course, we'll get into everything else. So how did you know that music would be where you put your heart and soul?
Well, I guess first of all, thank you for that awesome introduction. And about the music, my mother at a very young age told me, if you want to see somebody in concert, do it. They're not going to be around. Maybe the band will break up or whatnot. Learned that at a very young age. When I was a kid, she always listened to like, growing up in the 80s, she was into like Journey and like Cyndi Lauper was really popular.
Yeah.
Sheila Easton, is that right? But so like that gravitated into like Michael Jackson, and she was into the Jacksons when she was younger, and that was the first concert I got to go to as an 8-year-old in 1989. It was the Bad Tour, and so that kind of started the taste of going to concerts, and it's a big deal. You're going to see this person, I mean, of course, Michael Jackson's like, that's, that's a crazy one to start with. But after that, going to school, junior high, one of my best friends, he was into like a bunch of jazz music, or you listen to the radio and find the weird techno music late at night on Saturdays and stuff. And I gravitated towards him, and we just like going to concerts and keeping up with the bands. When you're younger, you start to get obsessed with things, and I was always obsessed with like Nirvana at one point. Then I discovered the next favorite band that would be my favorite band forever and ever, and that would be the Deftones when I was about 15, and started playing guitar because I wanted to mimic my heroes, and I just knew I wanted to be working, not necessarily working, I just wanted to be on stage and putting the show on. We'd go to the Coca-Cola Starplex when I was younger, now known as, who knows, it's a Live Nation venue in Dallas. But went there a bunch as a kid, and I just knew, I was like, I want to work here one day. I want to do this, maybe play guitar or, work on the stage or something like that. Didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew this is this is where I belong. Every time I go back to the Coca-Cola store, or I still call it Starplex. Every time I go back there, it feels like home. And coincidentally, now I work for the parent company of that venue, Live Nation, and who knows, one day maybe I might fulfill that self-proclaimed destiny eventually. Never really planned on doing it. It's just kind of cool. Even being a DJ, I never really planned on, I'm a DJ. I'm going to go DJ at this one place this one time or something to kind of go work it. Would be pretty cool. But yeah, it started with my mom telling me, go to the concerts, see the bands.
What was your favorite?
That's not a...
Okay. What? Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean...
That's not fair. Yeah. What stands out to you as like a moment in time, like where this event was like somehow changed the course of your life?
There's just so many. And there's still different experiences being had at concerts, big mega concerts and festivals that, even just as a regular concert goer, like I never dreamed I thought I'd have, whether it's performing or just somebody from the band or stage, not just recognize you or maybe playing your song while you're in the crowd and pointing you out or something like that. Like it's evolved from just being like, oh, maybe one day I'll get to go backstage and see how it works, to, oh man, I'm plugging in the cables to turn it on tonight, or I've got the keys of the building, or I mean, even just saying all this out loud it's a little overwhelming because I don't really get to like put it all in perspective, I guess. But like, yeah, like I say it a lot at work. I work for House of Blues in Dallas, another Live Nation venue for now. And every time I walk in that door and unlock the door, I'm like, man, this is the Deftones have played on this stage, or one of the Marley Sons have played on this stage, or Snoop Dogg has been here. Biz Markie, who just passed away very, very recently, he was a glorified resident that, they loved there. And like, I'm sitting here on the stage. Nobody's even here before the show, after the show, during the show, it's pretty surreal to think about that DJing and just the experience of being on stage and performing on stage and being back up for, the venues that needed it, kind of prepped me to do what I feel like I was kind of born to do. I feel like I have a lot of purpose when I go to work at any show, any concert, whether it's an artist event that they're booking me as DJ Titan, go play. That's obviously going to be my favorite. But then when I'm backstage being a stage manager or just helping out an artist or running some kind of backline for them or something, I feel like that's my purpose, you could say. Like I feel like I'm meant to do that. The feeling is just so, yeah, this is what I'm meant to do. Like every microphone cable I grab, or every stand I put on the stage, or going behind the bar to like clock in, even just like, this is the environment, that I want to be here, whether it's on the clock or contract worker as an artist. Like it's really cool because I've always said, I do other DJ gigs too, like some open format private event stuff. And I got to be honest and say that's not really my favorite. Even my boss that books me for it knows, he understands, like, hey, because there's less art in that. And I don't really need to be the performer in that situation. I kind of prefer to, let me set up the speakers and hide all the cables and make sure this DJ that's going to go on is going to be the best he can be. Part of being the best that DJ can be is being into the music for the people that are there, where if I'm playing and they're like, hey, you need to play the latest R&B or the latest rock thing, or the latest Billie Eilish, I'm like, whoa, who's Billie Eilish? I mean, of course I know who it is, but the first time I heard that name, like, 4 years ago, I mean, she's probably been around longer than that, or I was like, you want me to play who? I'm like, you know who Billie Eilish is or whatever, or even Post Malone, right when he blew up. So I play Post Malone, I'm like, downloaded it, played it, I'm like, and the crowd went off to it, and I was like, first of all, I felt like a bad DJ because I didn't know the current trends for this particular crowd. Second, I didn't know who Post Malone was, and I was like, this is a major pop star at that point. I should probably know that. Third of all, no offense to Post Malone, but I just wasn't feeling the song. Yeah. For the vibe, it was like people hands in the air, getting down, and then I play his first song called Congratulations, and it's a really good song. It's just kind of a slow ballad, but it did not do the trick for what I thought it was going to do. I mean, they did enjoy it, but it slowed the party down, and no big deal. It's a great song. He does have a lot of other amazing songs that get the party going. Jackie Chan, Sunflower, a whole bunch of his rock star. He has a lot of great hits for that kind of party, but that moment in time when that person kept requesting congratulations all night long, it made me realize I don't connect necessarily the way I do with the music that I'm passionate about, which is electronic, dance music, drum and bass, house music, that sort of stuff. I love old school hip hop. I love classic rock. I can DJ that stuff all day long. Metal music, I actually had a residency for a while playing all metal, like Metallica and Deftones and stuff like that. Love doing that all day long, but we're living in the city of Dallas where they're not really clamoring for me to go do that everywhere. They're, well, can you play top 40 and rap?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
yeah, I
can, but let me go ahead and direct you to my booking roster, and they'll get you a DJ, you know, no big deal. My work at House of Blues graciously offered me a DJ gig this past Saturday night in July, and they said, yeah, it's 8 to 9 o'clock, blah, 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 pays this. Can you do it? My first thought was, yeah, I'd love to. Text him right back. Then I go look at the calendar. Excuse me. Sorry, John. Then I go look at the calendar, and it's a Colombian act. It's a full band. And I text my manager back. I'm like, is this a Latin show? And he's like, yeah, can you do it? And I was like, I can. I mean, we have record pools online to like curate the music that can help me out. But the professional in me wants to get my student or somebody that is a Latin DJ in there, give them the opportunity to have some kind of shine, but also they know the music to play. Like, yeah. I can get in there and play some Selena or some old stuff that my mom, like, you know, raised me on, but I'm not going to go fake it for that situation. Let me do the right thing, sort of, because when I play open format stuff, like, I feel like there's so many DJs out there that'll do such a better job. They kind of deserve it. And when same kind of goes for underground dance music, when I see somebody that's not really, you know, that's not their forte and they go play a show, like, does the event suffer? Not really, but you want the best event you can have. You're going to want the best. You're going to want the person that's fit for that kind of wants to do it, basically.
I see that as like being a specialist, like in my industry, like I would call that being a specialist, right? So being a generalist obviously isn't your style. You obviously are passionate about the kinds and styles of music that you are there to serve. And you've got a stop point, which is probably really helpful to your audience, like you're saying, because you're not going to go fake it. But I wonder, like, we had this discussion the other day, like, how do you feel that you're giving yourself up in those moments? Because I think it, like you said something deeper, which was that you don't feel like it's your passion. It's not your creativity. Like, that's not where you're, you know, your best. So what do you think that disconnect is?
Well, like I was saying about, like, if I go take a Latin gig, I can sit there and go through the motions and do the work. And, you know, there's nothing wrong with doing that. DJing is definitely a noble position to have. Whereas you have somebody up there that's just dying to play, that probably a better Latin DJ than we could do it. Probably when you perform, you put out you display a certain level of passion. And when you're on stage, you're supposed to do that. And I kind of have a hard time, like, hey, listen to this next song that I don't even know. And,
right.
You know.
So you have to love the music, and it comes from
essentially
heart. What took you from, like, going to concerts and learning to play guitar and the understanding and the passion of knowing that you wanted to be, you know, in those stadiums and those arenas, into learning how to DJ? Like, when did you learn the DJ craft, and how did that happen? So
I guess I bought my first turntables in 1999 from eBay. I'll never forget. I was coming home every day to check for it. Then eBay's like, hey, we tried to deliver. We delivered to the wrong address. It went back to I was like, no. Anyways, they ended up making it after another couple of weeks. It was totally cool. And went to the record store. I already had like a stack of records. And I was going to parties, seeing other DJs play, just kind of watching. That's all I could really do. Didn't have any like YouTube or anything really at the time. And so I was like, okay, go to the store, buy their CD, or go to the record store that they worked at, and hey, do you have a CD of your mix? Try and find out what songs those were and buy them on records and try and recreate it. One of my biggest influence when I started was this guy out of Philadelphia, New York now. He goes by Diesel Boy, and he would put out CDs you could go buy at Best Buy or buy at Sound Warehouse or whatever the CD stores were at the time. And it was a big deal that you could actually buy a DJ CD. It doesn't really exist anymore. And they'd have a track list on the back, and you find all. And so my first credit card when I turned 18, maxed it out, just buying records on the internet, just trying to match all these CDs that I had. And okay, this one's first, this one's next. let's go, let's figure it out. And that's kind of how I discovered how to do it. And then I had other friends that were doing it as well. My the first guy that ever exposed me to it was my friend Isaac. I've known since high school. He had turntables, and we'd kind of go over there. My buddy Aaron and I would go over there and just be like, ooh, what's he doing? And kind of watch him do it. Then we go to the parties and see them do it. And then eventually, like when I got my decks, my turntables, we would, my buddy Aaron and I would just be at it all day. Like come home from work, come home from school or whatever. And it's all day long until we got it. And, after a while, like it helped to have a rhythm, to be playing guitar for 6 or 7 years before that, because I could count, I could keep a beat, and I could tell when it was offbeat, and I kind of knew what went together. And going to the parties, and I hate to say this, but you kind of learn what not to do sometimes more than what to do. You kind of see, okay, I got the motions down, but I won't ever behave like that behind the turntables, or I won't ever press that button, or whatever it is, like, or I won't ever, man, he looks bored,
Oh, right.
Like, that's, this is the most fun thing in the world. And still, even today, like a lot of DJs are just so focused on doing the thing that, I've been guilty of it too. But that's what I've learned over time, just watching others and kind of absorbing the whole culture of it and taking a little bit from all of it. I come from using vinyl turntables, and turntablism is a certain aspect of DJing where people are scratching and doing all that stuff. I don't consider myself a turntablist, but I come from a turntablism era of respecting the art and the turntable and doing it the right way. And I don't want to say the right way. There's so many different ways now. This DJing
has changed.
It's evolved so much. It's been kind of hard to keep up with. But at the end of the day, you're playing two songs, and you just got to make them sound good going into the other. And if you've ever been sitting at a party, and like, hey, I don't like this song, I think everybody wants to hear this song, and you go put it on the jukebox and the whole party lights up. That's kind of the feeling, that the rush that DJs like to get is like, oh, you like that one? Check this one out. Oh, this one's called Pony. That one's called Old Town Road, and he's talking about horses. Just have fun with it and stuff like that. And they don't even know sometimes. They're just having a good time bobbing their head, and that's the art of the DJ. They're just doing what they can to keep the party going and keep people dancing. Cool Herc back in the, I don't want to be wrong on the dates here, but he would take James Brown records, and there's always a part in a James Brown record where it was just like a little drum beat before he starts going huh, huh, or something. He would take that little part and have two of the same copy and play it, and as soon as that's over, play it on this side over here, then do that over and over and over, and it would create a beat. And these guys in the middle of the park in New York would set up their cardboard boxes and start dancing all funky like. And so that's where break beat and break dancing comes from. And it came from this guy using turntables. You're not supposed to do that with the turntable, and it's very unorthodox. And so that's where it all kind of came from. And that's turntablism, the birth of it all. And that's what I kind of learned from. Again, I can scratch, I can beat juggle, but you don't really see me doing it in the club, because I'm more of a, let's dance. No spotlight on me, spotlight on the dance floor. I used to say that all the time at the Lizard Lounge to my light guy. Shout out Mike. I go down there and be like, hey, can you make it less bright on my face and kind of shine the floor? He's like, yeah, but the manager told me not to do that. He wants to put it on you. I'm like, I get it. Like being on the main stage, or especially at a concert setting, I get you're going to have that, but I've never really been one to like stop the party and look what I'm doing. It's more like, I hope you're feeling it, because I'm having a good time up here. And
I totally understand that. It's the same reason that I like to do this. It's about shining the light on somebody else. And I feel what you're saying. There's something, you want to be the gift that's giving the opportunity for people to have fun, but it's not about that. It's about watching them dance and being the spotlight.
The kind of music that I like is so like, it's secluded to certain parts of the world as far as how popular it is, that I kind of feel like it's kind of almost a crusade of doing it for the music. I want people to enjoy drum and bass so that we can kind of become normalized at some point, which it's totally not here. And I feel like that's always been the mission. And that's, you mentioned earlier about professional presentation, that sort of thing. And it's always, I guess I say with the backwards hat, I've always kind of been worried about that as far as presenting the music a certain way, whether it's clean mixing as a DJ, or the flyer looking professional, or even kind of what you wear to the parties. Not saying that you got to like be super fashionable and stuff, but clean up, be professional, and say hello and shake people's hands, make eye contact. And same goes with the music. And I never was one to just burn a CD and here you go, check out my CD. I would always try and make it back in the CD times, make an actual carded, printed sleeve and pass out 500 of them, limited edition, make it special. And people would kind of gravitate to, well, who should I book? Oh, this one's pretty, you know, that sort of thing. And sure, it costs me money, but in the long run, it's just like a website. You're going to buy your website or pay a web designer to do it for you, or even YouTube videos and pay an editor or something like that. You want to have the best possible product. And I don't ever try to say that I have the best or I am the best or I will be the best. I don't really want to do that. I just want to do my best. That's it, you know? And I
love that.
It can come through, but you know, I think that's just subjective for anybody to kind of judge when they're having a good time or not, you know? So
where did you find the style of music that you love most?
Okay, so
when did that enter your life?
A really fun story that I like to tell. So again, my mom was super into pop music, like Journey specifically. I bring that back because there's this song from the 80s called Separate Ways, has this nice little synthesizer lead. One of my favorite songs growing up, like I remember the music video. Michael Jackson comes out and it's got a lot of synthesizer heavy stuff. I didn't really know that I liked synthesizers. I was like, oh, guitar, Kurt Cobain, you know, when I was 13 finally playing that stuff, then got into like metal music. Korn and Deftones, and I was reading some Deftones interview in some magazine. He's talking about electronic music and drum and bass. I'm like, I don't even know what that is. And then I started finding, like, I guess from MTV, it was watching Journey and the countdowns to Alice in Chains, Metallica, and then they had like a weird show in the weekends. Like they had Metal Headbangers Ball, then they had alternative, I forget what it's called, but then they had AMP, and this is like 3:00 in the morning on a Saturday night, 30 minutes of just electronic music. And my buddy John Paul that I mentioned earlier, we'd kind of be obsessed with it. He'd listen to Edge Club on 102, or no, I'm sorry, back when it was 94.5, The Edge. He used to listen to the Edge Club mixes every Saturday, and he kind of like was showing me some stuff. And so we'd go to the music stores and buy the Daft Punk CDs, the Chemical Brothers CDs. Bjork was a big one for us too. She's not really electronic music, but she, like, you know, the kind of music that it was just super, it was cool to us, you know. It was all kind of lumped in together into one section. And it wasn't genres at the time. It wasn't house music, trap, dubstep, or, you know, drum and bass as much as we knew. It was all dance music, electronica, techno was what we called it. Moby was out there. And so, okay, so John Paul comes into the car. I'm hanging out with John Paul from high school, and he comes in the car. He's like, hey, have you ever heard of drum and bass? I'm like, no. What's that? He goes, check this out. And he puts in a CD. It's Ronnie size in the car. Like these physical discs.
Right.
And the first beat, I was like, this is the best beat I have ever heard in my life. And then the guy starts rapping over it, and I was like, what? This is so amazing. Like the adrenaline, like I'll never forget that moment ever. I've told this story 1,000 times because I love telling it. And John Paul, like, is my brother from another mother. And it was just so awesome and pivotal for me because I was like, I like electronic music and dance music, but now I love this. So I'm going to go home. I'm going to get all my electronic music CDs, all of them. I'm going to try and find that beat. Because I keep in mind, I didn't know like the difference between what they were. So I go home and listen. No, that doesn't sound right. No, I can't find any more. Go to the local record stores. There's a CD source off of Greenville in Dallas way back in the day, and went and bugged them about drum and bass. And like, no, never heard of that. Go down to this other store called IGS in Fair Park, and that was all vinyl. And I was like, well, I don't have a record player. And like, yeah, well, we don't really sell CDs. It's mostly tapes. And at the time, and I walked into the record store, and I felt like I didn't belong there because I was like, man, these guys are so cool. And I felt weird asking for help, and I didn't know any better. But then my buddy John Paul was able to like help. We started discovering more. I went to Valley View Mall in Dallas, and I walked into this place called Gadzooks, and they sold rave clothing. And this guy had all this cool clothes on, and he's like, hey, you look cool. You going to the rave tonight? I'm like, rave? No. And he's like, well, there's a rave tonight, blah, 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 blah. And I was like, hey, do you like drum and bass music?
Oh, wow.
And he was like, bro, there's drum and bass at the rave tonight. Have you heard of Diesel Boy? And I was like, who's Diesel Boy? And so it turns out that CD store that I went to had Diesel Boy CDs, and I had the staff didn't know it was drum and bass. And I was like, oh, cool. So then Virgin Records was open at the time in Dallas. Went down there. Do you have any more Diesel Boy CDs? Like, yeah, we have them over here. Have you ever heard Aphrodite? It's another artist. I was like, cool. Tell me more. Like, just it began that way. But remember when I said Diesel Boy had the track listings on the back of the CD? That's when it was able to really open the doors. Go on the internet, search the artists, and then I discovered the the Dallas dance scene where people were going to the rave and stuff. They're posting on the message boards. So that's what opened it all up. And then I kind of started befriending one or two DJs or fellow DJs. We're all kind of going to the parties together, and that's kind of how it started, really.
It's amazing too, because it's true. Like back then, not to like age anybody, because I'm older than you are for sure, but you had to do your research in order to find music. It wasn't like you could put on...
It was word of mouth.
Right?
Straight up.
Yeah. So it's not like you could put on, a Pandora. Not that, I don't know. But, where music was given to you. And now, of course, it's risen since that era. But now music can come to you. You can actually make it, plug it in and it finds you. But back then, you had to dig.
There's no algorithm. It was... Right. And I know it sounds so dated saying there wasn't stuff like that, but it was definitely all word of mouth. Like nobody at school that I went to with, like my junior high years, like I went to one rave when I was like 15 years old, and I didn't realize it because I just sneaking out to go hang out with my friends, right? Like, get in the truck, let's go. And okay, cool. And end up in some parking lot, some music's playing, I guess. I didn't realize, but like years later, I was like, oh, I think that was a rave, I forgot where I was going with that story, though. I know I was saying something about it.
Do raves still exist? Like, I'm too old.
Yes.
I'm too old to even know. Like
they do. And like, in my opinion, you're never too old to keep going. I say that because I just turned 40 and I still go. There are still underground things going on in Dallas where like good sound system, good lights, There's definitely legitimate clubs that happen in Dallas. Obviously, we have It'll Do. Then you have bigger venues like the Factory off of Canton that used to be called the Bomb Factory. Trees. They still do some events sometimes. I think there's a Stereo Live off of Northwest Highway. They do pretty big events too. But people call those raves because of the music and what they intend to do there. There's Panther Island in Fort Worth. They have like daytime festivals out there, and people call those raves. But they end at midnight. And to me, a rave started at midnight.
Right.
Usually,
that was what it used to do. Like
went to
back
like
in
6
the day.
in the morning.
Yeah.
They still have some like that every once in a while. It's just strictly invite only, private parties, really, because they can't be like selling tickets at the door. Like they want to keep partying, but they don't want to. They're not trying to expose it to like a lot of people to come have like. It's safer that way, like to keep it private.
What do you think it is for you? Because I think that this is like music is one of those like. It transcends people, right? Like it's something that brings people together, and it's this connection point. And you've said it so many times so profoundly that it's connected you to people, to things. And what is it for you like about music that's
years ago, like a buddy and I were just having a conversation about it, and one of us was like, music's everybody that I know loves music at one point in their life has this thought or has heard it somewhere. People name their albums after it, but they say music's like a language. Mm-hmm. You don't have to really speak English with everybody or the same verbal language, but you hear the same song, you can hum it along. Beatles, whatever, is the same Beatles song in India, in America, wherever you want to go, and people can still sing it no matter what language it's in. You feel it with your heart, your emotions, whatnot. We always called it or at that moment, my buddy and I were like, it's like a universal language, right? And we thought we were so cool. We thought of this cool like term, but everybody said that throughout history. Apparently, that used that term. One of my favorite drum and bass artists, way after that, named his album "Universal Language." And I saw it. I was like, oh wow, that's what me in junior high we were talking about that. And then my best friend that I have the DJ school with, his DJ name is Soulja. And it's the word soul and Jah put together, but soul is an acronym. It stands for Shaman of Universal Language. And so he's had that name since 2000, since before I even met him. And that just tells you that everybody kind of connects with it as a language, whether they realize it or not. And having the realization that it is a universal language. It's definitely a step, but I can't really say what it really does. Like music can do a lot of things. It can take you back to certain points of your life. It can make you happy. It can make you sad. I'm a real nostalgic guy. I love going back to the 80s, and He-Man's about to come out again, and that sort of thing. Like it takes me back. And so the music from the theme song, like Full House. Sometimes you can start saying those lyrics somewhere, and somebody else will finish it for you.
Right.
I did that in subway in Toronto. Everybody is so nice. And I was talking to my buddy about how everybody is so nice. And I started singing the Full House lyrics, and I stopped, and a couple other people finished it. It was like, that's how nice people are, you know. And but it's one of those songs. The tune did it. Like, it wasn't really me. That's what music does, and that's what I love about it. And whether it's, you know, and there's music that, you know, all of us don't like, you know, some of us don't like or whatnot. It's all an opinion. You don't have to like it all. Just like I don't have to understand every single language to understand you or understand the message behind it or something like that. And I also understand too, not everybody's into music, and I've surrounded myself throughout my entire life, people that just obsessed with music all the time. And you find people that just aren't into it and don't get it, or, you know, I saw online some people talking about, if you're one of those people that doesn't, music's not a main part of your life, that's just weird to me. I'm like, I get it, but, you know, music's everything to a lot of us, but you don't really have to understand it to even like enjoy some of it sometime.
Right.
You know? And there's no rules, you know, there are definitely rules musically and stuff, but as far as, you know, enjoying it, it's I don't know, it's a hard question to answer.
You did a great job. I thought that was great. Universal language. I'm going to remember that. I'm glad you brought up the school, the DJ school, literally called the DJ school.
Yeah, we're proud of it.
What a great name, the DJ school. And I know you have the great pleasure of literally teaching the craft to people of all ages. Talk about how that got started. And
so the way that really got started, I had to put my turntables in my buddy's studio. He's had since probably 2013. And he's always kind of bugged me. He's like, hey, bring your turntable, bring all your gear here, rent the studio with me. We can make it a business. And I'm like, the studio, I have everything at home because, and that's where I like to make my music. I prefer to make it in a laptop, you know? And I just never really had the desire to drive all the way across town from East Dallas to West Dallas to go work on my music and use my gear. My home's my creative space. Well, I was moved to a smaller space, so I was like, I need a place for my gear.
Right.
It's a small apartment. This isn't going to work. So it's like, hey, my buddy Michael Brenner, hey, I'm going to put my turntables in and start paying rent. But bless his heart, it was a creative space to him, so he had so much gear all over the place. Just it wasn't the most professional, and that's kind of what kept me from wanting to use it too. I was like, well, I'm going to clean this place up, and it's going to take a week to clean it. And so when I went in there, I spent like 13 days in a row there, 12 hours a day, just cleaning, rearranging, testing stuff, make sure all the cables work, that sort of stuff. And by the end of it was all clean, I had like 10 turntables all set up. And I was like, hey, check this out, and showing it off. And the reason why I had it all pretty is because I like to like record videos of me DJing, and everything's a frame. I like to make sure everything, no matter what's behind me, it looks cool if we can frame it. And that's what I did. I was like, look, we have this DJ set up here, this one here. And so I called the guy who co-owns the booking roster that books me. I was like, hey, he's a DJ in town, Solja. I was like, hey, you need to come see this room. I'm going to record you DJing in it. I think it's a really cool room we got. And he saw it, and he's like, hey, man, how many turntables you got? I was like, oh, probably like 10. And he's like, we gotta do a DJ school here. Why not? I was like, that's a really good idea. He's like, you've been giving lessons for like probably 10 years now, right? And I was like, yeah. And I actually wrote a business plan 10 years ago to try and pitch one with my buddy, and that fell through, and for whatever reason. But it's mostly gear. When you're writing a business plan, you're trying to get capital to spend on gear, and that was 2009, and we were asking for a lot of money. And 10 years later, I'm like, well, look at all this. We have the room now, and it just kind of made sense. And Julio, DJ Solja, is really good at marketing, and he can really bring it home there. And I'm really good at pressing buttons, and I know the manuals, and if I don't know the answer, we will figure it out together. We have a lot of young children students, a lot of young students that are anywhere from like 8 years old all the way up to, I don't know, maybe older students up to like 50s and 60s probably. And we just have a great time. I've got 5 godchildren of my own, 5 goddaughters, and so like I like the experience that they've given me of how to be around children and show them, teach them stuff. And that's really helped with taking on these younger students and kind of understanding, and also seeing myself in a lot of these kids too, like a lot of fidgeting and stuff. And like their mom might be like, hey, no, don't fidget. I'm like, no, let him fidget. That's how I learned when I was a kid. Like I got you, kid, you know, like, and then sure enough, when they come to DJ, they're amazing at it. And you just gotta, it's not really like a language. You just gotta kind of see yourself in their position. And, you know, I was them at once. And then there are other people that are overachievers. Then there's some people that just don't care, you know, and you're always going to have that, you know? But yeah, Julio walked in and saw these turntables and was like, dude, and you're a teacher already. He's been giving lessons too. He had a couple of students before that. And it just made a lot of sense. And now we have so many students, it's getting kind of a little hard to keep up. Like, okay, we don't want to double book. I know we're DJing on this day, House of Blues, this, that. So we're starting to look at bringing in more instructors. We have one student that's been with us for a while, and I'm like, he's a great on turntables, CD players, controllers. He's 12 years old and he works. Actually, He goes and does like parties, weddings, that sort of stuff. And he's been taking lessons from us long enough. I'm like, I'm going to bring in a professional turntablist DJ, and that's where you're at now. Like, nobody really comes in like, I want to learn how to scratch. Every once in a while we might have that, but usually it's, I want to learn. I want to get to work. I want to learn how to use this $2,000 piece of gear I bought. I don't know how to use it, and I love showing people how to do that. And Julio really loves to show them how to control a crowd and, you know, play to the audience and stuff, which is something very essential. If they're not there to see you, they're there to party. And so you're there to enhance the party. And yeah, that's kind of how we got started with it.
So big plans in the future for this DJ school of yours?
We actually, I was talking to John about it actually, looking to up the online content and definitely expanding beyond the studio room that we're in. We've been hunting for a while. Like right before COVID, we started shopping buildings and stuff. Not that we could really afford it then for what we ended up finding, but here lately we've been finding more realistic things, and the amount of students that we're getting at the same time, the revenue we're generating, it just makes sense to continue to grow.
Definitely.
As well as new instructors, new classes. I said it last summer, but COVID happened, so I kind of wanted to do it this summer, but I'm kind of glad I didn't at this point now, with the way things are going with it. But hopefully next summer we can start doing summer camps.
Yes.
Maybe do a Christmas camp or something like that, a 3-day camp. I know, because we have enough of our kid DJs that can come in and be the student teacher. They'll want to do that. I've told them all about it, and they're like, I might need a student teacher, and they raise their hand right away. They want to do it. So stuff like that is definitely in the works. There's something I want to publish too, but I don't want to talk really too much about the idea. But I think it'll be really cool.
I love that.
But definitely have a lot of ambitions.
What is it that's different, special about being a teacher versus being the guy?
Well, being a teacher, I never really thought about it until I started teaching these classes and these kids one-on-one and seeing the results. Like I said, not everybody sticks with it, which is great. You know, the DJing can be a hobby or it can be your main source of income. Totally up to you what you want to do. But every class, there's like at least one light bulb that goes off. Oh, you see it in their face. And then you'll see maybe a couple weeks later or a year later, you'll see them put it in action and they're not even realizing it. And just like, it's some self-fulfilling stuff going on there. It's just awesome. It's like, I've never had any kids myself. I've definitely had, like I said, my godchildren, my dogs that I love very much like my children. But I gotta think that watching these kids do it, what I teach them, and get enjoyment out of it, that's got to be close to that feeling. I would think, like, they're not my children, but they're my students. So it's my pack, kind of, And
it's like there's a certain level of pride.
Yeah, absolutely. It's emotional. You see some of them, or like some of the messages you get. Like I've gotten gifts from some of these students, like, well, that was really nice of you to do that. Like, it's crazy. It's awesome.
Well, I mean, I think, we send our kids to these schools, and which, we have to do and we should do. But everything is about math and reading and all of these subjects that...
It's about testing more than it is about teaching, really.
Right. And they're not learning the creative stuff.
They're not taught to. They're taught to take the test really well. And there's some teachers out there that really go above and beyond and really inspire, because I had those teachers as well. And I guess to kind of circle back to that question you just asked about what do you get out of being a teacher, I've gained I've always had respect for my teachers, but a lot more just knowing what they feel. Not just like, oh, I know they get a hard time, they got to pay for their own pencils. I get all that, but like there's a little bit more of like connection. I'm like, man, they work so hard to get that student to learn that thing. You know, like sometimes the kids just will not get it. Know how many times you tell them, and they finally get it. You know, that's why the teacher spent her own money on the supplies, is to teach them that. And the teachers definitely are so underappreciated in America, because they wanted I get to teach my passion, and I've got no limits. Like I can teach it how I want to teach it. I can do it. Whereas if I'm like, I'm going to be a teacher one day, you know, I'm 6 years old, 13 years old, 20 years old, finally a teacher, whatever age, I'm like, well, yeah, you know, is your hands are kind of tied with certain areas, or like, you know, it gets kind of touchy, that sort of thing. So, it kind of deflates the whole dream, but that's what they wanted to be their whole life. But then you have the teachers that really do have the opportunity to inspire and all that. It just gets kind of dangerous when it's, hey, this is how we're grading everything, and this is how you're going to get your funding if you get better test scores, or, you know, that sort of stuff. Whereas I'm not saying it should be like this, but it should be more of how many successful people came out of this school, like, and what are they successful at? You know, what are they doing for the world? That sort of thing, rather than, you know, because test scores, like, you're going to have it's going to be how it is. And I'm not saying one school should, because they had more famous people or whatever, or world changers. It's just be more inspirational than more inspirational versus consequential. You know what I mean? So inspire, don't make them feel like they're going to suffer a consequence. Right. You know, like really emphasize the inspiration. And teaching a craft like DJing or even like welding, like this is what you're going to do. You want to do this, and you're going to do it well. You want to do it well. Just like me working at the House of Blues, it might not be like, you know, I'm not the CEO or the manager, but when I'm there, I love being there. I love, like, oh man, this place is a mess. Well, this is what we're here to do, and we're going to put the show on, or, you know, whatever it is, and just want to do it, you know, inspire.
Yeah. I think it's like it all goes back to that creative, and allowing people to be creative and have creativity and use their own creativity to teach is different than giving them tests to, and
we still test, though. We still, in our own little ways, you know, we still make sure they learn what they are taking in there.
I'm super excited for you to show me that. I'm really excited about that. I want to know how it feels. I know you've already said that, like, attention is not on you, and that is not your motive, right? And I heard you, but there's got to be something really cool and special about being up there with a crowd cheering at you.
There is. And that's not every gig that's like that. And it's not just the crowd cheering, but also like the attention and respect you get in town. Like I get to go out to certain places that I like to go to, and they treat me with respect that they don't even have to offer, courtesy. Whether it's skipping a line or not even allowing me to pull my wallet out at any point of the night. It's really hard to say that you don't do it for the attention, and there's certain aspects I don't really want that kind of attention, but you do enjoy it. It is fun. And it is a fulfilling, it's definitely a gratifying feeling of, man, I did something in this town to have such respect from my peers, or this establishment, you know, or even venues I never played at, or whatever, opportunities. I think when we were talking the other day, the best way for me to put it is when I decided to be a DJ and started getting DJ gigs, it felt like I won a contest on MTV or whatever the kids are watching these days. I won some sort of contest to like go to a concert, have all access, get all the autographs for the next 10 years, you know, and then the 10 years expired. I'm like, oh shoot, the 10 years are over. We're still going. Yeah. And here we are another 10 years later. I still feel like I won this contest. COVID happened and things got really dark for a while, and it made me not want to go out even when the pandemic ended, because of some of the way society kind of behaved with themselves, you know. And I was like, I don't even want to be around a lot of those people. Like, I used to party with those people or whatever, and this cloud just like lifted or went over my head, and I was kind of real jaded about it, and started going out to gigs again. Or not really gigs. I started working again, but I went out for a night on the town for the first time in like 15 months. And I was able to hit up like 3 or 4 different venues. And again, like all the places were just so cool with me. And it made me realize, man, I do kind of miss this. This is fun. And these people, like I didn't just work so hard for 20 years for nothing. And, it's cool to be kind of recognized in a way for it and still be able to 20 years later feel like I won that contest. Like still, I still get asked to play some of these DJ gigs. I'm like, really? Is this really, yeah, can't talk about some of them yet, but it's pretty crazy,
I love that for you.
Yeah.
I think that's so cool. I think it's amazing that you feel that way about your life. And I hope you hold on to that really, really strong and tight, because that's...
Well, it's going to be passed down to the girls, the godchildren. Definitely, like the 5 and 6 year old just got their first real DJ controllers yesterday, and they've been surrounded by it their whole life. I don't get to have all the gigs like I used to. Like it's not as often, which makes the ones that I do have they have the potential to be even that much sweeter. But all that lifetime of memories and stuff, they'll never go away, and hopefully I get to tell those stories to them. Hopefully they want to hear them, But I think we're doing okay.
I love that. So, what do the next 10 or 20 years look like for you?
Man, that's a really good question. So by the end of the decade, we should at least have at least one standalone. You can walk in, you see it from the street, school, like, open 7 days a week.
Name and lights.
All that stuff, and by then, in theory, I probably only have to go to the school like twice a week,
Right.
like I wouldn't be there. I'd probably be there every day because I love doing it, but I would like to be Julio and I's curriculum just being taught at that point. And we're just doing the hiring process and getting people in there and throwing events for our students and playing DJ gigs if we want to play them. At this point, we don't really have to play any because we can get our students to play all of them for us if we want. But we'll still take some. I know Julio's going to DJ until he dies. He loves DJing. If it was drum and bass, I would totally do it too. I just understand my place in it. Like I can take those, but like we talked about earlier. But in 10 years, like definitely standalone, more of an administrative than 10 hats at once role. Growing, keeping the place growing. When we made the logo, the first thing I thought of, like Julio's idea was to make it similar to like a popular video game. And so it's real universal and recognizable. And plus the name, the DJ school, it just looks cool. Like if you see it from the street, we have a feeling people are like, I want to go in there. And when I saw it, it looks like karate, like martial arts tournament because of the game that was inspired by it, or we got inspiration from it. I instantly saw the DJ school Dallas, the DJ school New York, the DJ school Houston, or whatever. And then we all have like DJ school battles, battle each other, basically, multiple locations. That's a little ambitious for wanting to do completely nationwide. I definitely don't want to turn it down if we could get there, but a little more realistic, maybe we could do like a DJ school San Antonio, Houston, Austin, or something like that, and then start regionally. But that's where I'd like to be. My record would be out, remix records of it, and then hopefully more records if I ever decide to start making more music, and hopefully a couple of tours under the belt for those records that I put out. Yeah, I guess that's it.
More big creative dreams.
Yeah, definitely got to start. I got to get them out of the system by the time I turn 50, I guess,
I love that. I love that so much. So what is it, this will be my last question, but what is it that creativity and being like really following your passion, because you've said that more than once, what has that meant to you all in all?
I mean, at this point in life, in 2021, the first word that comes to mind, like right when you ask that question, is sacrifice. Get a little emotional kind of thinking about it, because like you get to live this awesome life, weekends full of concerts, DJ sets, getting paid, girls, whatever, just, being a DJ, there's a life to it, there's a lot of attention you get from it. But at the same time, you give up a lot of what a lot of other people do on the weekends or family time. When you're traveling, I was traveling for a good 5 years and missed all the barbecues, you have to pick and choose, am I going to go to Australia this week, or am I going to be there for the birth of, somebody super important, or you make your choices, and so, that time I chose this, but I didn't go to Australia. But then the time I was in New York, then, my dog of 12 years, I couldn't get home and he passed away, like just things like that. And your family kind of like, not mad at you, but just like assuming you're just not going to come anymore, that sort of thing, like, oh, we thought you were probably working, because usually I am. It's just, you got to give up certain parts of that. And I haven't had any kids in these past 40 years, and not for the lack of wanting any, just never really ended up in that situation with anybody to do it. But I got to think to myself, man, if I had kids, would it be any different?
Right.
What ambitions would I have not chased? And, I've had a great support system, whether it's my family and friends that have come to the shows, or my mom for inspiring my musical everything, whether it's the kind of music I listened to at first, into the evolution to her supporting me. She went to my first gig at the Green home bar ever. It's now called the Green Elephant. She was there. I'll never forget walking in and, oh, my mom's here. Like that's cool. She believes in it, and she, tells everybody, like, even before I started like playing all the time, like I'd walk into conversations of her just like talking about it, like, oh my God, like that sort of thing, like the support, unfounded. But would it be the same? Like, I'm not saying having a kid would ever ruin it, because that's definitely its own, ambitious miracle there. But I definitely like want to say that, like, I've given up, like, I'm not going to go work this 9-to-5 job that I got offered like $80,000 a year, because I'm going to continue to work at this musical retailer that I work on commission, and I'm going to go DJ 5 nights a week to go just, be happy doing it, and because it was very fulfilling at the time. And I'm glad, Julio came by, and, he's like, hey, you're a teacher. We should just do this, because I get that I'm not going to be a DJ forever, or I'm not going to, I mean, I will be, I'll definitely have turntables and able to do it, but I'm not going to be the one to walk into any situation and be like, okay, I got this. I could, but that's not where my future's at, and not the art, not why I got into DJing. I didn't get into DJing to make money. I didn't get into DJing to just play anything for anybody. Some people do, and that's totally fine. I got into it because I love this one kind of music, and I just want to make people dance with it. And if they don't like it, then I don't really gotta, that's not the party I'm supposed to be at anyway. And they're few and far between now as you get older, obviously, but I still get graced with awesome opportunities left and right for it. And again, the DJ school being the culmination of it all. Like it lets it live on. It's like, we made that logo, and every time we see it, we see a community, not just a name, and we see the 50 students that we've had so far and rising. And if we ever need anything, hey, call this kid, maybe he wants to do it. Or if they ever need anything, hey, got this song or whatever, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's that song, whatever, da, 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 da. It's just a big symbiont community. And I think Julio and I, DJ Soulja and DJ Titan, live on as long as that school is alive, whether we're in town or not or whatnot. And, I'd love to be a drum and bass DJ until the day I die at the same club every week, people wanting it. Eventually, hopefully one day that can happen. But I live in Dallas, so it's not really, it was like that for a while, but, trends grow, disco, you can't go to a disco and hear disco anymore, right?
No, that's definitely true. I love that. And thank you for that honesty. I think it's sacrifice is something that we all make accordingly. And that was a really beautiful, very honest, candid answer.
I gotta say that. Yeah, that was the first word that came to mind, and everything I just said, it's just totally off the cuff. And sacrifice, I want to say a lot more. I have, obviously other descriptions for it, but that's definitely the first thing that came to mind, and I'm not trying to put it down or say, oh, you got to give up stuff. I mean, it's naturally going to take sacrifice, like to be ambitious.
Yeah. I think that's,
pick your battles.
That's it's very valid, and you can look at it from all angles, but you're going to have to sacrifice whether you're doing this, whether you're living your creative purpose or not. So you might as well live your creative purpose doing it, right?
Yeah. Exactly.
Thank you so much for being here.
No,
I really appreciate
so much.
it.
I appreciate all the questions. That was awesome.
Yeah. Go see DJ Titan. Hey, Dallas. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Dallas Culture Club podcast. We know you have a million ways to spend your time, and we are thrilled to have you here with us. We'd love to connect with you. Go to dallascultureclub.com and sign up to join the club. Be the first to receive our latest episodes, invitations to roundtable talks and events, and connect with other local purpose-driven individuals. Go to dallascultureclub.com and join the club today.